This is your report from both sides of the pond. Get it? Ducks, beavers, both sides of the pond? Okay, fine. I'll stick to dad jokes.
Joining me on the Oregon Man Clinics hotline, I want to welcome in our Oregon recruiting correspondent, Max Torres. He's the publisher of Ducks Digest, covering the Ducks for Sports Illustrated at Fan Nation. He also hosts the Ducks Dish podcast. Max, thanks for joining me again to talk some Ducks recruiting.
Anytime, Justin. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
So let's start off with one of the top priorities for the Ducks in the 2024 class, who just named his top three, and the Ducks are in. Five-star defensive lineman Aydin Breland out of Mater Dei is the number 35 recruit nationally and the number 3 recruit out of the state of California. I think the two schools that Oregon's going up against are kind of interesting, Max. Former landing school, Georgia, and then Mario Cristobal's Mario Hurricanes.
Yeah, this is probably one of the biggest developments of the week. Justin, Aydin Breland through the Ducks in his top schools on Wednesday. And then he's going to be taking a flight out to Athens, maybe a couple flights actually. I don't know what the flight plan is for that, but a couple of flights out to Athens to take an unofficial visit with Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs, back-to-back national champions. He took his official visit in mid-June. So this is definitely a big development, seeing that I'd probably put Breland up there as one of, if not the absolute priority, uncommitted target for Dan Lanning and the Ducks this cycle. He's really emphasized winning at the line of scrimmage, and I think that this just solidifies that Oregon is still in a pretty good spot with Breland, who cut out Texas A&M from his recruitment. So this is kind of a little bit of a wild card visit for Breland, because when I talked to him last month, he said that he didn't have any more trips planned before making a decision, but, one could come up, and here we are. So got to think the Ducks would love to get him back on campus. Still no decision timeline for Breland, but I would expect sooner rather than later, maybe in the next couple of weeks to a month. So got to get him back up to Eugene for a game.
It sounds like the news isn't so good with Breland's teammate, five-star offensive tackle Brandon Baker, and you've actually just changed your prediction on him this week. What went behind that, and what would the Ducks be missing out on in Baker?
Yeah, so that was a pick that I've been kind of thinking about making for a while, and it was a tough one to make, right, because I predicted Baker to commit to Oregon back in May. I've covered him really closely since I got out to Southern California, and it was always really, really good with Oregon. Always had good things to say. Loved how Dan Lanning kind of helped reassure him of being too comfortable in Eugene, right? His brother played for the Ducks. He's been to Eugene a million times, super familiar with the program. So after he told me that, I thought that was really kind of what I needed to say, hey, this is what's going to help them get it done. But in, the last week or so, talking to sources out here in the Southern California area, all the conversations that I've had kind of just reaffirmed that Texas looks like the biggest threat to Oregon here in this recruitment. Steve Sarkisian and the Longhorns are coming off that huge win over Alabama, and he still hasn't taken his official visit to Oregon, which I think, even though he's been to Oregon and kind of seen everything he needs to, I think it's still a different experience and a valuable one at that. So now he's going to be committing next weekend, Sunday, September 24th, as of right now, but he's heading to Lincoln, Nebraska to check out Matt Rule and the Cornhuskers, who have stuck around in his recruitment. And honestly, Justin, I think Oregon might be running third possibly here, maybe top two, but it just seems like there hasn't been a ton of momentum for Oregon for a while now. So they would be missing out on the number one ranked offensive tackle, which is definitely a bummer if they were to miss out on him, if this Texas prediction ends up happening. And, an Oregon legacy to some degree and a top West Coast guy. So I think on the surface, it wouldn't look good, obviously, for the Ducks, but they're still at work pursuing a couple of other offensive linemen in this class. So I don't think it would be the end of the world, but certainly he'd be a guy that you'd love to get.
Max Torres of Ducks Digest joins me on Game Day. So Solomon Williams, a four-star defensive lineman, he's a 6'3" edge out of Tampa, Florida, named his top five, and Oregon is in it. It's Alabama, Oregon, Texas, A&M, and Clemson. He's also scheduled to visit for the Colorado game. Max, what's the latest on this?
Yeah, Solomon Williams is another big-time guy that Dan Lanning and company are going after this cycle. I'd say the top edge target that they still have on their board. Obviously, you missed out on some guys earlier this cycle with like Elijah Rushing going to Arizona, Jordan Ross going to Tennessee. So the latest with Solomon Williams is that he's still feeling the love from the Ducks. I think that this news coming out, especially on the heels of him scheduling that official visit to Oregon for next week when the Ducks welcome Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, and the Colorado Buffaloes, him taking his official visit and having Oregon in his top 5 just solidifies that they're a top contender in this recruitment. I think he's severely underrated as a recruit, even though he is a 4-star guy, but I think he should be rated and ranked a little bit higher than he is. So this is by no means going to be an easy one for the Ducks to pull, but he's one of those guys that I think could be one of those tricks that the Ducks have up their sleeve in the recruiting class here in 24, as I talked about on my show last week. So definitely not a done deal, but I think Oregon likes where they're sitting for Solomon Williams, and they definitely want to have a good defensive showing next week against Colorado.
So what do you think the state is of Oregon recruiting right now? You might miss out on a guy like Brandon Baker if you're the Ducks, but you're in the mixer for some other top recruits. How do you think the Ducks have been able to do putting together their 2024 class?
Yeah, I'm really liking it. I think some fans may think that they can be better and should be better. They're sitting at number 12 nationally, according to 247 Sports. So I think that they could be better. Sure, there's some misses that you'd love to have back, but I think you stay involved on some of those guys that you missed on to see if they're still receptive to communication as we get closer to signing day, just about 3 months out. That's in December. So I think it's good. And I think that a top 10 class is still well within reach. I thought at one point, Justin, this was maybe going to be a top 5 class. Maybe not looking as realistic now, but I love their haul right now, and I still think they're in a great spot to add some serious blue-chip talent.
So you've also actually had a chance to see all of the 2024 and 2025 Oregon QB recruits in person, including the son of Achilles Smith, his son Achilles Smith Jr., and Michael Van Buren. So can you tell me about what you've seen out of those guys?
Yeah, I got to see both of those guys last week, and I'll start with Achilles Smith Jr. He's someone I'm super excited about. 2 years out, obviously, but moves tremendously well for his size at 6'5", 205, has a lively arm, and really moves well and throws well on the run. So I think the sky's the limit for Achilles Smith Jr. I love the way his development is kind of tracking right now from a physical standpoint, and just being the son of a legendary Duck quarterback is certainly going to be great. I like the coaching staff over there at Lincoln. Think they're going to be able to get the most out of him. And then with Van Buren last week, it was definitely a tough showing against the number 3 ranked St. John Bosco Braves, defending national champions. He was running for his life most of that game, to be totally honest. But I think you definitely saw some signs of improvement and just some encouraging stuff from him. He was able to settle in on a couple drives and work the ball to all 3 levels. But I think he's a good leader. Obviously going to be battle-tested, playing against one of the toughest schedules in the entire country. So I think he's a good one, but I feel like people don't get the full story with him just because the competition is so elite.
So that's 2 QB commits. There's a 3rd quarterback commit for the 2024 class. What do you think about Luke Moga?
Yeah, Luke Moga out of Phoenix, Arizona, Sunny Slope High. He's the second of Will Stein's 2 quarterback commits this class. He's a really exciting player, I got to tell you, Justin. I think he might be a diamond in the rough kind of a deal, a gem that Will Stein and company were able to uncover. He's super, super athletic and has some crazy speed. I think he ran a 10.49 in the 100-meter state playoff track meets. So that's super notable, just his ability as an athlete to run. You don't see that speed with a quarterback every day. I also just like his ability as a playmaker, how he can extend plays while keeping his eyes down the field. And he has a special situation at Sunny Slope. He's not playing with a ton of D1 talent like Michael Van Buren is. So he's really the guy. And I just love the leadership that he has and just kind of how he's developed as a player. He's still pretty raw mechanically, so there's obviously some work to do there from a technique standpoint. But the more I think about it after getting to see all these guys, he might be the quarterback that I'm the highest on just because the ceiling is so high. And Will Stein's done some really good stuff with quarterbacks during his career. And I think that Luke Moga could be one of those next guys once he gets to Eugene. Going to take a little bit of time to see the field probably, right, with how new he is to the game. This is only his second season as a starting quarterback at the high school level. So he's going to be a good one, and I'm excited for him to be a Duck.
Max Torres, you can find him on Twitter at mtorresports, and of course on the internet, publishing for Ducks Digest at Fan Nation, as well as hosting the Ducks Dish podcast. Max, thanks for all the recruiting insights again this week.
Thanks for having me, Justin.